constrained because the other scoring exists.
Sure.
I can't finish my cards. I've given up. I'll make the river longer. I'll build a mountain. I'll throw a few trees on the board. This is where it differs from Calico, because Calico at the end, you're like, well, unless I draw the exact piece, I am losing points.
That's true.
Here I can be like, well, I'll make one of my mountains bigger.
Yeah.
What would you give this?
I'm coming down, actually, I'm fine on Calico and Azul, you know, looking at that. I'm coming in at a 7. I like the game, I won't gravitate to it, but I think it's a fun, I think almost relaxing style game.
I'm actually coming in at a 5, and I think I'm going to be the outlier amongst the general public. It has a lot of things going for it. It is beautiful. I just feel like the many games that we've already discussed, Calico I'd rather play, Cascadia I'd rather play. For me, a 5 is not a bad game. I want to be clear. I feel like it's, well, for you it is, but for me it's a mediocre game, and that's the word I think that I associate with this, is that I feel like it's okay, it's fine, it's mediocre. So many other games of this ilk I would rather play.
Now, I don't normally do these type of videos, but after watching the Dice Tower's review of Harmonies, I was shook. Honestly, totally shooketh. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the Dice Tower, totally no hate on them. I just knew I had to come on here and kind of plead my case for Harmonies a little bit. So if you're unfamiliar with what Harmonies is a brand new tile placement game. It's kind of more like a disc placement game. You actually kind of have little like discs that you will be placing onto your personal little player board. This game is super, super, super popular right now. People are comparing it obviously to other popular tile placement games. I think that's very reasonable. Whenever a game comes out that is very heavy in a certain mechanism, it's natural to compare it to other games that are like that. So I kind of wanted to make my own video today talking about a handful of games, specifically in the tile placement games, or tile placement game mechanism thing, and I wanted to rank them and kind of briefly talk about each one. Now I do want to make it clear that these 5 games that I'm going to be talking about today, I love each and every one of these. Each of these games I would absolutely recommend, but I am going to go through and rank these on how I personally enjoy them as of right now. One of the games that I'm going to be ranking on this list today I actually do not have with me, and that one is Aqua. So we're going to be doing Aqua, which I don't have with me, Akropolis, Cascadia, Harmonies, and Calico. So let's go ahead and dive into this list, chat a little bit about each game, and where I personally would rank them. If you have played some or all of these games that we're going to be talking about today, please go ahead and drop in, a comment below how you personally would rank them, and if you think Harmonies is living up to the hype. So going ahead and starting off this list with number 5, again, I really like this game, but when I think about all of the games that are in this particular list, one of them has to come in 5th, right? And for me, the one that's going to come in 5th place is Aqua. So in Aqua, again, I would have the box here, but it's actually with Kim currently, because Kim has just been loving that game. You have little reef tokens that you will be placing out into a grid in front of you. Now, when you have 3 reefs of the same color that are touching in, I think it's like a hexagon, you will actually attract that same color of animal, and it will actually rest on top of that reef habitat. Now, the more animals that you collect, once you collect a big grouping of those colored animals, then you actually can attract the large mammals onto those smaller animals. So in most tile placement games, I feel like you are just simply building out a big grid in front of you. Aqua is interesting because you are actually incentivized to build up. So you'll actually be building up your little tiles a little bit and trying to score the most points. What makes it interesting though is that as you are stacking, you actually never lose the points that are underneath. So again, I keep using the word incentivizing. You really are incentivized to build in this game because the more you build, you basically are just stacking points on top of points on top of points. And I really think that's my favorite part about this game. And I really wish that there were more tile placement games that kind of had that mechanism where you really want to stack and build and you just keep getting points. There is a game that we're going to be talking about here in a second that you still has that building mechanism, like you are building, but you're not incentivized you're not as incentivized as you are in this game, which again, that's my favorite part in Aqua, is how really you just want to be building up your tiles. The reason why it is in number 5 for me is because I have played this game a handful of times now, and I still kind of struggle with the scoring for whatever reason. It's not quite as straightforward and simple and streamlined as I personally would have liked it to be. There are lots of different ways to score in this game, and there's lots of different ways to switch up and change the scoring from game to game. So it, again, has really high replayability because of that, but for whatever reason, it's still, every single time I sit down to play this game, I'm still like, okay, wait, how does this score again? And like, as I'm playing the game, I have to get the rule book to kind of remember how things are scoring. So that's the only thing that's kind of pulling it down for me. But I mean, the Vincent Dutrait artwork is beautiful. It is a fun game. Again, it has that building aspect, which for me feels kind of separate from a lot of other tile placement games. So that is why Aqua is number 5. Still a great game, but I just wish the scoring would personally be a little bit more clear for me personally. So number 4 is a game that I actually had the opportunity to play for the very first time fairly recently, and as we were playing it, I thought to myself, okay, I really, really like this puzzle. And that one is Akropolis. Unfortunately, the box came a little bit damaged, so just ignore that corner of the box here. But damaged corner aside, this is a great game. In Akropolis, you will have little, they're almost like plaza tile pieces, and I believe you're building out Rome or Greece. Yeah, you're in the Mediterranean Sea. You're at the heart of the Mediterranean. So you're the architect of this Mediterranean village, and you have these plaza tiles, and you are laying them out in front of you. And what's interesting is there are different colored plazas. There's blue, green, red, yellow, and purple. I think those are all the colors of the plazas. And then there's the whites, and the whites are like basic. They don't really do anything. But what's interesting is each color plaza actually scores in a different way. So I know, like, the couple of games that I've played, when the red only scores if it's on the outskirts of the village, and the blues score if they're connected with other blues, and the yellows, I forget what the yellows do. The yellows score, I think, if they're like not touching any other yellow. But what's interesting is that some of the plazas, they are that color, for example, a blue plaza, but they have a star on it. So at the end of the game, those will actually help increase the value of all of your blue plazas. So you're going through kind of doing all these puzzles. It is similar to Aqua in the sense that you can stack and you can build onto your other remaining stacks, but when you do that, you actually lose everything that you cover up. I wish it was more similar to Aqua in the sense that you were incentivized to build up and stack up, but because you're not incentivized to stack, you actually have to be a lot more strategic when you do. I have to be really strategic about the way that I'm placing my tiles in this game versus Aqua. So that's why this one kind of draws me in a little bit more. I think I really like this game. I think it is really great, and I am super excited to continue to dive into this one. It's almost hard to say that this next one is in my 3rd spot, because the very first time I played this game, I thought to myself, this is it. Like, this is my favorite tile placement game. Nothing will ever beat this. This is my favorite. I love it so much. It was in my top 10 games of all time for the longest time. But unfortunately, because I think of something else, which we're going to be talking about, I think that this game has been pushed out, which is so crazy for me to say. But whether it's pushed out of my top 10 or not, I still love this game, and this is Cascadia. I'm sure everybody knows about Cascadia by this point, but in case you don't, Cascadia is, again, another tile placement game, and you'll be placing tiles out into a grid in front of you, and you are trying to create the most, I think it's like the most biodiverse ecosystem. So you'll be placing out these tiles, trying to connect regions. So you're trying to have, big mountain ranges and long rivers rivers and big open plains. And while you are going about doing that, you also have animal tiles that you are trying to place onto those, or little animal tokens that you're trying to place onto your tiles. What makes the game interesting is every single animal in this game scores in different ways, and the base game actually comes with a handful of different scoring objectives for each animal. So every time you play, you can kind of swap it in and out a little bit. So for example, if you're playing, maybe your bears like to be in little small groups, and your salmons like to be in long runs, and your birds like to be solitary, so they don't like to be touching other birds. This was actually one of the very first tile placement games that I played when I got into the hobby, and I remember learning the game and playing it saying, wait, what? You're doing like all these puzzles at the same time? Like, I remember that was like mind-blowing for me. I know cozy game is like a new kind of phrase that everybody's using for games lately, but this truly is a cozy game for me. I think the reason why it's cozy is because as the game goes on, your board just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which means your options just keep getting bigger, bigger, and bigger. So you never feel constricted in this game. You never feel like, oh, there's nothing that I can do. There's always something that you can do. It has a really good build. You just feel like you're constantly building, constantly getting more things, and constantly getting more points. Cascadia is a super approachable game, especially for people who have never played games before. That's primarily what Cascadia is in my personal collection. It's one of those welcoming games, right? That even if you've never played a game before, I know I can sit down and teach you this, and basically anybody can catch on to this game and be able to play it and enjoy it. I think the only thing that's pulling Cascadia down for me is that I think I personally enjoy the crunchiness level of these last two games that we're going to be talking about a little bit more. So having said that, let's just go ahead and dive right in to our number 2, and I'll be able to explain a little bit more why I might prefer that one over its sister game. If you haven't guessed it already, number 2 for me is Calico. Calico is so fantastic. This is the exact opposite for me from Cascadia, because Cascadia is a game that I know I can pull out with basically anybody. Calico, I will only pull Calico out for very specific groups of people, and the reason why is because Calico is very mean. It looks like a nice, cozy, happy game, but it is a very mean game. In this game, you have basically a quilt, and you are building and putting together a quilt, attracting animals, sewing buttons onto it, trying to get the most points. How Cascadia's board keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and growing, and you get more and more options, Calico is the exact opposite. As the game goes on, you only have a limited number of places to place your tiles, so as the game goes on, it becomes more and more and more restrictive. Calico is one of those games where you're thinking to yourself, okay, I need the purple polka dot piece right now, and if it doesn't come out, then I'm just screwed and I lose 17 points because of that. So it's one of those games that I would not just introduce this to everybody. I don't think it's super approachable. I think it is very mean, but for me, I love the tension that this game brings, and how I just get so frustrated sometimes, because there are times where I'm like, okay, I need this piece, please come out, and then it happens to come out right on my turn. I snag it and I grab it, I'm able to put together my quilt exactly as I want to. It's just such a fun and interesting puzzle for me, so I really like the tension that this brings over Cascadia. Again, Cascadia was on my, top 10 games of all time. One of the reasons why was because it was just so easy and breezy and approachable. Calico is definitely on my favorite list of all time too, but it's definitely not one that I would introduce to anybody. We've talked about almost all the games now. There's just one left, which if you have been kind of paying attention to my channel, it shouldn't be surprising. But yes, my number 1 is Harmonies. So this was one that I kind of disregarded the first handful of times I heard people talk about this. I remember it was a handful of months ago. I heard a couple people talk about it. I saw it was on like the hotness list. Okay, fine. I have enough tile placement games. I don't need another one. Then I saw Amy and Maggie from Thinker Themer, which shout out to them. If you don't follow them, please go do. They're amazing. I saw them talking about this game, and after seeing their review, I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe there's something here that I'm missing. So then I kind of looked into it a little bit more, and then I was like, you know what? I have a feeling, I kind of get these feelings about games sometimes. I had the same feeling with Sky Team. When it kind of started to get buzz, I was like, I think this is going to be the next big thing for a little bit, the next hot thing. So I just quickly went and ordered it. I had the same feeling about Harmonies. I had heard more and more and more people. It was a lot of buzz, and I was like, you know what? I think this is going to be the next big thing. I'm going to quickly order it. So I quickly ordered it, and it came, we broke it open, we played it that night, and I immediately fell in love with this game, and it broke my heart. I fell in love with it so much that it broke my heart, because after playing it, I was like, this is gonna knock some of these other games off of my, top 10 or top 20 games of all time, because this is so amazing. So let's chat for a little bit about what Harmonies is. So in Harmonies, you have these little discs, and on your turn, you will select 3 discs and then add them to your little board that is in front of you. That's all you're doing. You're selecting discs and adding them to your board. But you also have a couple optional actions that you can do. And one of those optional actions is to select an animal card. Now, every single animal card is different. And what you do is you are trying to attract those specific animals into your little ecosystem, but you have to fulfill the certain patterns that they want in order to fully attract them onto your board. Once you have that pattern made out on your board, for example, the little bumblebees here, it wants 3 flowers or 3 little flower tokens and then 1 little tree. And then once you have that pattern, then you can go ahead and place your little bee cube on top of that tree. And in order to fully score this little bee card here, you need to do that particular pattern 2 times in your area. But what makes this game interesting is that all the patterns that you're making out on the board, they all can actually overlap with each other. So there are times where as you're going out, you can get 2 or 3 cards that their patterns kind of overlay a little bit. So you're just going and kind of putting all your patterns on top of each other, trying to be the most efficient that you can within a small area. And I've been thinking about this for a little bit of why this game fits so well with me, and I think this is the reason why. All of the games that we've talked about today, there are touches of every single one of those games within Harmonies. It has the restrictive nature that Calico has, right? When you're working with a limited board, it's slowly filling up. You're really trying to get the tiles that you need in order to successfully complete your animals. And it's nice because Calico, you have a very limited pool that you're working with. And in this game, it's restrictive, but you have a slightly larger pool, so you have more chances to get the tokens that you really need. One of my favorite parts about Cascadia is all the different animals and all the different patterns that you can kind of swap out and change from game to game. In this game, it's just like that, except it works throughout the game. Throughout the game, you are able to select the animals that you are wanting to score for at that time, and you can constantly be getting new animals, fulfilling old animals. So your patterns, you're working through your patterns, you're changing your patterns as the game goes on and trying to get the best patterns for the particular layout that you have going at that time. Just like in Aqua, you are incentivized sometimes in this game to build. You're building your patterns on top of each other, which it works so well with my brain. I love looking at all the animals and trying to piece together in my brain, okay, how can I get this pattern to link with this pattern really well? Can I have it flip-flopped? Can I bounce this animal off this other animal? And then just like Akropolis, you have to be really strategic about the way that you are placing stuff. You can't just place and stack willy-nilly. You really have to be strategic about the way that you're going about your patterns. And so I think that's why Harmonies hit so well for me, is because it takes all these games that I love, and it takes, in my opinion, the best pieces from all those games and compiles it into Harmonies. Now, I do agree with some of the stuff that the Dice Tower said. I will make sure to link to that video in the description below, so you can go check it out. Don't just take my word for it. Do your own information search on this game. But I do agree with what they said about a couple things about Harmonies. It is a little bit lucky because you do have animals that will be coming out, and sometimes they work in your favor and sometimes they don't. But having said that, there's enough animals on the board that for me, I never felt like screwed over by the card play. It's not lucky in the sense that like I roll the dice and oops, I got a 3 and I needed a 4, and there's nothing that I can do about that. There are a lot of animals that are always out on the board, and so I never personally felt restricted. I never personally felt like how in Calico a little bit when I'm like, I need this tile now and it doesn't come out, that I'm screwed. I never got that feeling. Like I said, it felt more like tension because, again, separate from Calico, you have a bigger pool that you're working with for the tiles that are coming out, and you also have a big pool of animals that you're dealing with. If it was a more restricted pool and a more restricted deck of cards that you were working with at any time, pretend you only had 3 cards on the table and 3 pools of dice that you're pulling from, maybe it would bother me more, but because there's so many, I never really felt that. Also, like, if you don't like tile placement games, I don't know if this is going to necessarily change your opinion of it, but for me, it does feel different from the other games. Like, I think that there is a place in my collection for Harmonies along with all of these other games. So I guess I just kind of wanted to complete my case for Harmonies a little bit. I think Harmonies is, in my opinion, this is one of the best games that I've played all year. I totally think it deserves the hype. I totally think it's worth it. I know some people are probably going to love to hate on this game because it is new and because, oh, hi. Oh, we should go wash your hands then. Anyways, coming back to this, I definitely think Harmonies is worth looking into, absolutely. And yeah, definitely think it is worth the hype. Hi. Not only is it one of the best games that I played this year, but it honestly is one of my new favorite games in general. It's like my family's just been playing this nonstop. We have loved this game. I'm going to be doing a video at the end of the year talking about my favorite games that I've played throughout 2024, and this one is definitely going to be on the list. Alright, so there's my roundup for you for 5 tile placement games that are similar to Harmonies. Thank you so much for watching this video today. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, it would mean so much if you could do that. It really helps support me in everything that we're doing over here. But until next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you later.